everybody, this is Matthew Movies coming at you with my review of Predator 2, the 1990 movie that was the second film in the Predator franchise. I know, who could have possibly seen that coming, right? Now, if you've been to my channel a fair amount, you've probably picked up on the fact that I'm a huge fan of the original Predator movie. I just absolutely love it. I have spoken about it being my second favorite film of all time, something that I absolutely stand by to this day. It's just a movie that I think is infinitely rewatchable, and I could tell you pretty much every scene that happens in it because I've seen it that many times. So when this movie came out back in 1990, I was 8 years old, which I guess gives you an idea of the type of movies my parents used to let me watch when I was little, but I was super duper excited. I couldn't see in the theater because, again, I was 8 years old, but I was so excited for it to come out on video, and my parents rented it, and I watched it, and I was just blown away by how much I hated it and how much I thought it sucked and did not live up to the franchise in any way, shape, or form, in my opinion, back then. Now, I've watched it subsequently several times, and do not get me wrong, I do not think this movie is fantastic. I still don't feel like it lives up to the original film, but I also don't think it's as bad as I used to think it was. I think it's a movie that it could be very aptly described as solid. There are some parts of it that I think are really interesting, especially for fans of the franchise and fans of another franchise. You probably know what I mean if you are a fan of both, but there is some moments in it that I think are really cool and add to the mythos. Those being, of course, the alien skull being in the ship at the end. I loved the creation of the net weapon where he shoots people with a net instead of just encasing them up against the wall. It starts cutting into them and essentially turns them into cubes. I mean, that idea is very gruesome, but very one that if you put yourself in the position of the person that's in there, like how scary that would be, because obviously you're being hunted by this creature, but you get put up against the wall and you think, oh my god, what's it going to do to me next? And then it starts cutting into you and you realize you're already done. I mean, that's a really cool and interesting idea. I love the moment where he shoots the blade thing and it cuts all the meat down in that warehouse or that butcher shop or whatever you'd call it. But I think there's some really interesting parts, but I also feel like there's some really missed opportunities. Like one of the major points of this movie, one of the ideas that they clearly thought would make it different was they took it out of the jungle, like the original film, and put it in the city. But I feel like they didn't really take advantage of that. I felt like it was a gimmick, but they go in a warehouse or factory or cuttery or whatever. But other than that, there's not really much interaction with the other people. There are a couple of scenes near the beginning, and then there's a scene at the end where the Predator can no longer cloak itself, and there's it kind of runs through some apartments, and you see an old lady be like, kind of thing. But really, for the most part, it remains a story about one guy fighting with the Predator and then a group of people, other people getting involved. It's not really that different from a story point of view, which I think is really a shame, because the idea of it being in a major metropolis, I think, really had a lot of potential, especially one that was so crime-ridden as the one they portrayed here. I think it could have been really interesting, and I feel like they missed the boat there. And for the most part, there aren't really any scenes other than the three that I already mentioned that really jump out at you. It's kind of very blasé, but interesting and cool, and there's some good, decent action, but there's nothing about it that really jumps out at you. But there's also nothing really in it that I think really is awful. It just, to me, is kind of a middle-of-the-road action movie with a creature that I absolutely love and a few cool, interesting new elements. So those are my thoughts on Predator 2. Let me know in the comments below what you think, if you're a fan, if you hate it, whatever. Other than that, please hit that like button, hit that share button. I love talking to people about movies, and I love it if you would do that, because then other people will discover this video, hopefully, and come and check it out and join the conversation. And speaking of which, if you are new here, you just haven't done it yet, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. It'll let you know when I put out a new video, and you can come, let me know what you think. Other than that, have yourself a good day.